Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
All right, hello there, folks. Hey, okay, so I'm here today to talk a little bit about Dream Killer, which is the Netflix documentary you can check out on Netflix about the Ryan Furgeson case, which is one of Zellner's cases, obviously, one that she got a lot of attention from, and it was, and she even says in the documentary how this particular case was unlike any of the other cases she had worked, because usually she would come up with her findings and she would bring it to, whatever district attorney or whoever, and that they would look at it and they would do an investigation, and usually, everybody would just, see the merits and it would, but not in this case. She said this was the first case where they were just denying everything, and making it rough, and they were even trying to disqualify her as an attorney there, and they were pulling a lot of different maneuvers. She says to try to stop it before they could ever get started, even with the Ryan Furgeson case, and I thought that was interesting. But the one thing I thought was really interesting, it was at the beginning, is how much the Ryan Furgeson case and even the Chuck Erickson case, how much they closely resemble Brendan's case. I don't know if you guys were picking up on that, but if you listen to the things that those officers are saying, particularly to Chuck, but even to Ryan doesn't go for it. Ryan's adamant. He's like, no, I wasn't with Chuck, and if Chuck knows about these things, then maybe Chuck was there, but I was not with Chuck when he did that. And so he's very adamant, and he doesn't fall for the tactics. But Chuck on the other hand, he does fall for the tactics, and he completely incriminates Ryan. And so that's what ends up happening. But I have some clips here that I want to go ahead and play so that you guys can all listen to them and just tell me if you're noticing any red flags that pop out at you, some things that you might have heard before as they play. Okay, here we go.
I can't recollect, and it's just a trip for me to have to sit here and try to look at something that happened that I've read about and try to base what I remember off of that. It's a mind fuck.
Let's just stop right here. Okay. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sit here and listen to this kind of gibberish. Okay, that's not. I'm not going to waste my time doing that. No. Wait. Now listen. I'm going to start talking, and you're going to start listening. Okay? All right. I'm going to be point blank with you, pal. Right now, your hind end is the one that's hanging over the edge, and Ryan could care less about it. Okay? Do you understand me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, you better start thinking very clearly.
Okay.
Because it's you that is on this chopping block.
Okay.
What I want to hear is exactly what Ryan told you, because that's what's going to keep you in a position to where you're not going to be the sole individual out here responsible for what happened to Kent.
Okay.
Whose idea was it to go get money because you wanted drinks, you wanted dope, or whatever you wanted?
I wanted to go home. That was Ryan's idea.
Ryan's idea.
It's holding up. It's not holding up good, man.
Pretty rough. I'll be honest with you. I came in here because I got a boy your age, and I see that you're hurting in here.
I've been hurting, man.
I can see you're hurting. And you're not quite knowing what to do. You're not quite knowing what to say.
I can't even talk to my dad.
I understand. Well, if I could stand in for him for just a little bit, because like I say, when I'm looking at you, I'm looking at my own son. Sometimes we do things and I don't know why we do it as human beings, and I even do it too. I do things that hurt myself.
I know where you're going with this,
yeah.
man. I didn't do anything.
I heard
innocent.
Right. Because you're innocent of killing this guy.
I'm innocent of even being there. I'm not involved in this in any way.
going back to when you said that you hit this guy with the tool, how many times did you think you hit him altogether?
Just once.
Just once? Well, the only problem I have with that is I know that he was hit more than once with the tool.
I'm saying like I just hit him once.
You just hit him once, you didn't hit him more than
No.
Now, we know what the guy got strangled with. That's kind of the thing I've been holding back from you.
Okay.
All right? Is it possible that you know what he was strangled with and just didn't want to tell me? Because I know.
No, like I think it was a shirt or something. Or
well, I know it wasn't a shirt.
like maybe a bungee cord or something from his car. I don't see why he'd have a rope in his car.
Well, we know for a fact that his belt was ripped off of his pants and he was strangled with his belt.
Really?
Yeah. Do you see a belt in Ryan's hand? Something look like a rope maybe or a bungee cord?
I don't know.
What am I gonna say, dude? It looks to me like he's making it up.
But why would you say that?
Because the way he's talking. Like, I think we...
He can't make stuff up that only people that were there would know about that we never released to the press.
And maybe he was there.
Well, it ain't a maybe. He was there.
Okay. Well, I wasn't with him.
Well, but you can't have it both ways. Okay.
Dude, I don't know what happened. You
Ryan,
guys are asking me like,
but you're
like
saying,
I know,
you're
man.
saying he's lying, he's making it up, maybe he was there. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Either he knows what the hell he's talking about.
If I know what the hell he's talking about, alright? I don't know if he's lying. I don't know if he was there. You say he's there? Okay, he was there. I wasn't.
It comes down just to people believing people.
Okay.
Yeah, well...
and right now, nobody believes you.
It sucks, dude.
It does suck because you're not telling the truth.
Y'all can say it 100 fucking times, alright? I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth, man. There's nothing else I can say or do to prove my innocence, man. I was not with Chuck.
Okay.
It's funny how Ryan's case for Zellner is actually very much like Brendan's case. And, I mean, let's walk through that for a second. There's no physical evidence against Ryan or Chuck, for that matter. So there's, just like with Brendan, there's no physical evidence at all to tie him to the crime scene, Teresa, anything, the rab, anything at all in this crime whatsoever. So there's that similarity. You have the interrogation tactics, which you guys just watched. I mean, first off, we have the opening clip where we see them putting the fear into Chuck. You know, like that guy's intimidating Chuck. He gets up real close. He's got his hand in Chuck's face, and you know he's really trying to intimidate him, and it clearly works because Chuck does get scared. You can hear it in his voice at one point. Then it cuts to a clip of Ryan. And you hear that one cop talking about, you know, oh, I bet it's rough for you. And Ryan's like, yeah, I can't even see my dad. And the cop's like, oh, well, you know, maybe I could be a surrogate and this and that, you know, using all those terms. Anyway, so there's the whole thing of that tactic being used where it's like, you know, wanting to play the father, you know, surrogate father type thing. I know you're hurting. I mean, like, even the same terminology, like, and this is acceptable practices. You see? Look at all the hubbub it's created with Brendan. Obviously, it was one of the reasons why Ryan's conviction was eventually overturned, right? And it's like, and our court system is just slow to pick up that these tactics, especially on young people, even though Ryan was 19, but, well, Ryan didn't succumb, but Chuck, on the other hand, was still, I mean, just a young kid. Mentally, at heart, whatever, he was a young kid. And he was intimidated very easily and told them what they wanted to hear. You hear him in the second clip with Chuck, after the whole thing with Ryan, where that one cop's trying to be dad. You hear in the second clip with Chuck, where the guy's essentially feeding Chuck information. Chuck's at the beginning going, I don't want to, this is weird, this is like a mind screw, you know, blah, 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 right? Because like he's saying, they gave him documents that they want him to say if he remembers or whatever, right? So it's like they're feeding him narrative, and he's complaining about that at the beginning of the first clip. When that one cop cuts him off and starts getting in his face, right? So in the second clip with Chuck, you got that cop who's there and just telling him, just like with them telling Brendan she was shot in the head. You have that cop basically offering up to Chuck that the victim was strangled with his own belt. He doesn't let that come out on its own. He offers it up to Chuck. so that Chuck can then say, yeah, Ryan did that, right? And it's obvious. It's something we've already seen with Brendan, and here it is in a case where eventually this case got overturned, and here we are seeing these tactics used on young people, teenagers, and we're getting that result. And then we get to that final clip with Ryan, where they're obviously showing him some clips of Chuck incriminating Ryan. But I'm sure they're not showing Ryan the clips that we saw here, where they were feeding him information. They probably showed him clips where he was kind of starting to feed them the narrative that they wanted, so it looked a little more, like if Chuck was saying it of his own accord, essentially, right? You know how they do that, right? They beat him up, just like they did with Central Park 5. They beat him up. And then finally, when they got him all ready, they take him into a room for like the formal recording of the formal confession, where it all comes out a little more seamlessly than it was, extracting and feeding and doing all the things that they had to do in cases like this, where they're forcing a conviction like a square peg through a round hole. So I just find that interesting how this case parallels Brendan's in quite a few ways. And so ultimately she needs to get into court so that she can impeach testimony. Well, she talks to Chuck early on. Chuck actually expresses an interest to speak to her, so she speaks to him early on. They get him understanding what happened, that they tricked him. And she just starts feeding them the paperwork to show them what they weren't telling him at the time, that they knew but weren't telling him at the time. And as she was sending him that documentation and stuff, he was putting it together in his own head and realizing what the cops had done to him, and by doing so what he had done to Ryan. And that's when he was ready to come out and basically say what was what and tell the truth at that point. And so she gets him on the stand in the evidentiary hearing. He tells the story of, look, Ryan had nothing to do with this. He's like, and he stands in there toe to toe with the district attorney too, and he actually he gets kind of nasty with the district attorney, but he does it in a way that, it's funny because the district attorney asks a question and he starts to get kind of long in his answer, and the district attorney at one point, because he's really throwing some stuff in the district attorney's face, and eventually the district attorney says, well, I didn't ask for a speech. It's very interesting to watch. And then there was the other guy, the janitor guy, I can't remember his name right now, but there was the janitor guy, and the fact that he had said his wife had sent them the article and all that stuff in court and everything, and all that wasn't true. It was all fabrication. And so that all gets called into question, even the district attorney, because once Zellner found out that guy came straight to the district attorney, straight through, the state's, offices, that she's wondering how that testimony came out, if he came straight to the state itself. And so that's what she was implying and everything. And so the judge, the district attorney at the time who was now a judge by the time this documentary was being made and the evidentiary hearing was happening, he was a judge. He gets called in and he just looks very uncomfortable and like he's on the hot seat there, because he understands that the fact that guy came straight to them and that he was telling a fabricated story and they didn't realize it, he knows that makes him look bad, and so he looked very uncomfortable. It's interesting stuff. It's very interesting to watch. And even after that judge there in the circuit court, the district court, the court where they had the evidentiary hearing, he ends up finding that there was nothing wrong and upholds the conviction. So that gets appealed. And that gets appealed to the appeals court. And then it goes before the 3-judge panel, and Kathleen Zellner argues her case. And it was then, 2 months later, a decision comes out where they ordered they ordered Ryan released immediately. And you see that Kathleen Zellner's calling the Furgesons and telling them that he's going to probably be released that day and that sort of stuff. And so you get to see everybody's happy. I mean, but like I said, it's funny how much it parallels Brendan. The tactics they used and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's like at least a court somewhere looked at that and went, okay, there's no evidence. They're feeding this thing to this entire confession to Chuck. It's not really coming from him. And they saw the merit and they let an innocent kid, out of prison. Ryan. And I don't know. I imagine Chuck should get out too, because I don't think Chuck was involved personally. I think Chuck may have a lot of issues, substance abuse problems that lead him to make bad decisions and that sort of stuff, but I don't know that he did this. Don't think he did, because there would generally be some evidence of him there if he had been, one of the perpetrators. So anyways, thought it was interesting. Dream Killer, for those of you who haven't, go check it out on Netflix. It's on Netflix right now, so if you got your Netflix subscription, you can go check it out for free there. Very interesting, about an hour and a half long, and basically goes through the story and gives you all the main points and how they're basically shooting holes in the prosecution's case as they go along. It's very interesting to watch, and so if you haven't already done so, thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.